Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Adam. Thanks for hanging out with me again today. And, well, the video is not about these. These are just something to look at besides me for the next 30-40 minutes, maybe. Today's video is answering all your questions from the Ask Me Anything request I made a little while ago. So I'm just going to jump into it. Now, some of the comments, I am going to kind of skip over some of the commentary and just go straight to the question. So, just trying to make everything as quick as possible. So Empty Pockets RC asked, what happened to the globe liner? Did you get it finished or did I miss it? And I accidentally answered him in the comments, but answering it here as well. I did get it finished. I still need to fix the turn signal on it. One of the turn signals stopped working right before I shot the video, but it's working. Everything except for the turn signal is done. I just need to get it out and actually do a run with it somewhere. It's just taking the time to load all that stuff in the car and drive somewhere to run it around. I could run it around, outside a little bit, but I would prefer to actually be able to get some good footage of it running around the parking lot. So that is coming eventually. Now that the weather is cooling off and I'm not going to sweat to death in the middle of a parking lot, it sounds much more interesting. So Ali RC, he's got a few questions. So first one is, if you had the interest in the okay from your wife, would you make your track bigger in size and shape? Not as big as Al's track, of course, but big enough to run the bigger scale cars around there. So the reason my track is the kind of size and shape it is, I took out the camera that I'm talking to outside, set it up on a tripod, and I went and put some cones out to get field of view. And then I took the car out and set one of the, something about this size, a little 10 scale, and set it around. And when it got to the point to where it was like, I can't tell what that is in the viewfinder, I figured that's as far away as I want to run, because nobody wants to see a little speck running way over there, just kicking up a trail of dust for 5 minutes. I tried to keep perspective in mind for the track, because I knew mainly the track was for me to run on, but I honestly knew I wasn't going to run on it a lot. So it was a good 50-50 mix of something that would be fun enough for me to just take a car out there and slide around, do some fun stuff with, and then also for you guys to be able to see it well enough. Now, if I had the money, I would get, 3 more GoPros and set them up in multiple locations and do, edit it all so it, a big track with lots of camera angles. But cost, time, money, and effort all made it as small as it is. If I had, the resources to have more cameras and had the time and energy to go out there and double the size of it, sure, I'd double the size of it. He said, how long does it take me to get over to Al's house? It's usually about 40 minutes. It just depends on traffic. It's not that far away. It's just usually clashing schedules is what keeps us from actually getting together. And he says, when you or Al are out there, are you always filming, or do sometimes you just meet up and do fun stuff without the cameras? We have, just to get together. He's come over here and just hung out, and we sat here and talked in the basement, RC, YouTube stuff for hours and hours and hours. I've kind of done the same over at his place. It's just gone over and hung out and, chit-chatted. But for the most part, since both of us are doing YouTube, when we do get together and we're driving stuff, generally we're going to have cameras on just to catch footage, and then we can kind of piece it together and make something kind of worthwhile watching. Just makes more sense, enjoy ourselves, and be able to make some content while we're doing it. The fourth question is, would you consider the Armor Quake not only for review, but as part of your collection at all? I really do like it, but at this point, my Gorgon is essentially an Armor Quake. I've put... I think I've got a 3750 kV motor in mine, so it's a little bit, not quite the 4000 that the Quake is, but I've got granite tires on mine, I've got a different body on mine, and now I have the wheelie bar. So I've kind of got the Quake already. So is it worth the $270 to go get another one just to have the Quake? Not really, not at this point. I'm trying my best to save up some money for next year. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, Tamiya blows out and releases all kinds of stuff early next year, mid next year, end of next year, and I'll need some of that money to put forth to all that. That's my hope. Plan, at least. I would like to have one. They are really cool looking. They look like a ton of fun, But again, I've kind of built my own because it took them too long to come out with them. And then fourthly, he says, I'm not a lipo guy, but the Quake does come with a brushless electronics out of the box. Would you think it would be a waste of time and money to get the truck and then change the electronics to a brush system? I like the Quake, but I'm not sure to change the truck around, and I don't need that much power, to be honest. In all honesty, I wouldn't go and change it to brushed. They all come with the, 50, 75, 100 limiter on there. So the biggest thing is the stock ESC, and I think it's a 2-in-1 in there. I don't know if it's compatible with nickel metal hydride. You may have, low voltage cutoff issues trying to run a nickel metal hydride pack through it. And really, I understand the kind of fear of lipo, but if you get one, it comes with the smart technology battery. So those are fairly goof proof. It comes with the charger, comes with the battery. So stick it on charge, charge it up, run it. And if it's too much power, knock it back down to 50 or 75%. And not only will get longer runtime, it'll still be a ton of fun. Honestly, if you were just wanting to stay brushed, I would probably just say get a Gorgon and, maybe buy the Quake body and stick on it. Since you're paying more to get brushless, and then going backwards, you could pay less, get the Gorgon, and just throw, the Quake body on there. Should be kind of where you're aiming for, I think. So Spare Time RC, this is a 2-part question. For a new person starting a new YouTube channel, what would be the 3 most important things when starting off on YouTube? And then what gear do you use for recording your videos? So for part 1, the 3 biggest things I would say, if you were starting a YouTube channel today, what I would recommend. 1, ignore stats. You're trying to compare your brand new channel with thousands of other RC channels that have been around for years. I never thought I'd be doing this to start with, but here I am almost 5 years into it, still making videos. So don't look and get disheartened when you see, you go out and buy this truck and you build it and you try to get your video out first and you get 15 views, and then 3 days later I put out the same video covering the same truck and I get 700 or 800 views. Don't let that bring you down. Don't get discouraged by it. It's just because your channel isn't that well known and not that many people are just stumbling across it. And it's not that YouTube favors big channels over little channels. And I'm not a big channel by any means. It's just basically how well that video does in that first hour or two kind of determines how that video is going to do. If I launch a video and it gets 150 views in the first hour, that's going to be a great video. It's just going to keep getting pushed out and pushed out and pushed out, and more people are going to see it, and I'm going to have a 3,000 view video. If I push out a video and it gets 15 views in the first hour and a half, 2 hours, it's a dead video. I'm going to get a 200, 300 views on there, and that's going to be all. It's just the name of the game. So don't get hung up on stats. Don't try to compare yourself with anybody else. Just do your channel, and it will continue to grow. It's a snowball, and it starts out as a very tiny snowball, and it does not grow very fast. The second thing is just use what you've got. Don't go out and drop $800, $900 on a vlogging camera and, $300 on a GoPro and all these GoPro accessories and mounts and all that stuff. Use your cell phone. Cell phones today's have great video, great audio, take great pictures. Just use your cell phone. Get a nice screen protector for it for $40 to try to protect it if you do drop it while you're out there filming. And, just use your cell phone. Use what you've got. And then later on, start investing into getting more stuff. Getting, lights and sound deadening and all that stuff. Don't go rush out and buy all that stuff. You don't have to create a whole YouTube studio to start a channel. And lastly, YouTube burnout is a thing. You're going to get disheartened. You're going to get tired of it. You're going to just want to ignore it and walk away. But consistency is key. If you put out a video every week, you will build a following. If you put out 2 videos a week, you will build a following a lot faster. If you're putting out 1 video every month and a half, you're not going to gain much traction. Now, unless you're doing, sick viral videos every month and a half, sure, but odds of that happening are slim to none. So don't compare yourself to anybody else. Don't get hung up on the stats. Don't go out and try to build a YouTube studio to start out with. Just cell phone, cars, and your kitchen table. Nobody really cares what's in the background. I mean, I say that with 40 cars behind me, but I could have a brick wall behind me, and people are going to look at what's on the bench, what you're doing, what you're talking about. The background is just, it's pretty, and it's where I store my cars. And then 3 is just don't burn yourself out by trying to do too much too quick, but don't rest back on your laurels and put out a video every month and a half and expect to gain a bunch of traction. So try to start out with a video a week. And then once you're accustomed to it and you starting to build up some views, move to 1 video this week, 2 videos next week, and then bounce back and forth, and then try to get to 2 videos a week. That's how you're going to kind of build and grow. So RCU in the shed, it's kind of a 2-part question. What's something you've always wanted to try but haven't inside of RC and outside of RC? And with all the kits that you do you plan on doing another hauler? So first part, something I'd like to do outside of RC. I would really love to be able to do like metal sculpture, like welding and all of that stuff. I just think it would be really neat, but 1, I don't have the materials for it, and 2, I don't really have the artistic vision to, make a horse out of 1,000 spoons. So I've seen it done. It looks really awesome. I would love to do it. It's a big hurdle to jump over, so I doubt I ever do it. Maybe something small scale, start out with the little rat rods made out of spark plugs and gear wheels and stuff like that. I don't know. And something in YouTube or something in RC. I would really love to get, something giant, a primal RC or something like that. Something just off the wall, bizarro and stuff like that. But the financial cost of those things are ridiculous. I can never see me paying $4,000, $5,000, $7,000, $8,000 for an RC. Actually, the other thing would be the construction equipment. I can see me sitting out there for days and hours playing with that stuff, but I can also see me investing entirely too much money into that. Because, you start off with a little tiny, toy grade one, and then, you've upgraded that, and then, let me get something a little bit nicer, and then, I need something a little bit nicer to go with that. And next thing you know, I've got 8 friggin' hydraulic unit things sitting around here that, I'm financially ruined because of. So that's why I've never done that. And as far as building another tractor trailer, I would like to. I've got the Grand Hauler, I've got the Globe Liner. I would like to do like I don't know. There's 4 or 5 different theme trucks I would like to do, but it's an investment doing those, between the truck, the trailer, the lights, the sound, kit, all that stuff, and then you're starting to customize things with, wheels and tires and all that stuff. It gets expensive fast. So those are, like an every 2 or 3 year type of thing. And then, get that done and then come back to one in another couple years. Since I did one this year, it's probably going to be another year or 2 before I buy another one. All right, so Steve Wallman. I saw a vintage Tamiya RC Porsche 959 kit. Very expensive, over $3,000 on eBay. If you had something like that, would you keep it unassembled or would you build it? I have 3 unassembled kits here. One is a vintage Tamiya lunchbox that was gifted to me by the RC Elf, and I couldn't bear building it. It's still from like the 80s. So instead, I made the silly decision to buy another kit and then go out and source all the old gold-plated screws and a 3-step mechanical speed controller, and I built it exactly like it would have been out of the kit box, but I left the one in the kit box there. RC Elf also gifted me 2 other ones, the Marui Land Cruiser, Wheelie Cruiser, And that I didn't want to build, both because it's a perfect new inbox kit, and the plastics on those aren't the best. They don't age the best, at least. So I was a little worried that, I dig into this to build it as a beautiful shelf queen, and then I break a very hard to find, expensive part to fix, and, have to chase that down for Lord knows how long. And then, actually, up there, the third one he gifted me new in box is the Mugen Bulldog 2, and that is brand new in the box, never been touched, and it may stay that way. Of the ones in box, that one may get me eventually. The curiosity may just get to me and want to build it, just because it's such a weird, unique kit. But there is a lot of hesitation on anything like that. You can you can buy one built and then restore it and then drive it. It's going to have a few little dings and scratches in there. It's going to have some wear and play and stuff like that. You can always buy another body and tires and stuff like that to make it look brand new. But, it's been driven, it's been built, and it is what it is. Once you build it, once you take it out of the box and build it, you can never unbuild it and put it back in the box the way it was. You can't reassemble parts trees. So there is kind of the nostalgia and the coolness of, that thing has been sitting in the box since 1986. And nobody has ever decided to build it. And those are getting fewer and fewer and fewer out there. So I don't know. I never thought I would be the guy sitting here with 40 cars sitting behind me and new in box kits that I don't plan on building anytime soon, if ever. But here I am. Things change. I used to be just had 5 or 6. I'd go out there and just punish all the time and, repair them and jump them and race them as hard as I could and laugh at the guys. Be like, I don't understand why you got 100 cars. You never drive them. And now I've got over 200 cars, and some of them I hardly ever drive. So if times change, outlooks change. I think the older we get, the more we kind of respect something like a new inbox kit like that. So that's kind of where I'm at. Probably not. So VSCI 79. If you could just choose one, which would you choose, 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive? It's a hard question because 4-wheel drive is a lot of fun. You gas it, it goes. You tell it to turn, it turns. There's not really any more than that. Just how much and where do you want to go is kind of how it goes. Now, obviously, if you're racing, yes, there's a whole lot more into it. But just running around in the yard and running around on my track, it's gas, go, turn left, and, you're there. 2-wheel drive, on the other hand, there's a lot more finesse to it. A little bit easier on the gas, a little less steering, a little bit more brake into the corner, so you can kind of swing the rear end around because the front's just kind of just rolling around up there, sliding around. Overall, I think if I had to stick with one, I would probably just go with 4-wheel drive. More to build. It's more fun to drive because it's less frustrating sometimes. Although I do love the 2-wheel drive buggies and stuff to slide them around, and if you can get out on my track and slide it around one of those big corners and throw dirt and dust up in the air, I love that. But at the same time, spinning out every other lap and getting frustrated with it, to where the 4-wheel drives are just basically just run laps. So, it's hard to say, but I would say I would lean towards sticking with the 4-wheel drive. Just generally was more fun and point and shoot. So Hackman, what was your first RC? My first hobby grade RC was the Tamiya Super Blackfoot. I got that right when it came out. Ordered it from a local TV shop. He sold and ordered stuff for people out of his business account there, and so that was my first hobby grade. Before that, the one I probably had the most fun with before that was the Heads Up Turbo Hopper from Tyco. And before that, I had dozens and dozens and dozens of different toy grade ones, from everything from run behind it with the 5-foot leash cable controlling the little, your controller was here, you had a 5-foot cord connected to the car and you just had to run around behind it, to some of the wireless ones where it drove forward but it only turned when you went in reverse, so you had to, everywhere you wanted to turn, you had to make that Austin Powers 12-point turn. And it was a little bit of everything, but the first hobby grade one was the Tamiya Super Blackfoot, which I recently rebuilt. So this is one that I had purchased as a kind of a decent kit, but completely rebuilt it, new body, new wheels and tires, and this is my shelf queen from my childhood, I guess. Santiago, my question for the video is some advice on painting. What do you use to paint the hard plastics on like a Grasshopper or a Honda City Turbo to keep them white? Paint, varnish, or nothing? And do you put the decals above or below? So normally when I build, now I have just put the stickers on the body shell and just let it go. Especially if it's one that I really know I'm going to go out there and tumble and beat up. Why put a perfectly shiny paint job on there when it's going to get chipped off, and you're going to have a different color plastic underneath of it. So a lot of for some of those I have just slap stickers on there and went. And especially like the black body shells, they're really good looking when they come out of the molds. Most of them are. Some of them have little stress marks and stuff in them. But the white ones, they do tend to yellow over time. All of my white ones I have just painted with the Tamiya TS paints, and generally just the paint itself. I have put clear on a few of them, but most of the ones I put clear on were ones that I've had issues with the paint, and I've had to like sand out some bugs or something out of the last coat of color. So I just had to blast a coat of clear on there to cover up the little super fine scratch from sanding out the little bugs or something like that. Generally, I don't clear coat most things. Now the Grand Hauler, I did clear coat that, and one or two others, but most of the time it's just the TS paint, and that's shiny enough as is. And the only time I have lacquered over decals is when I was requested to. Brad wanted some, and he wanted me to paint over the decals. Personally, I don't, because if this rolls over, you've got very hard, if the paint's cured, you've got very hard paint on the outside of that body. And if you slide over a stick or something, well, that stick is just going to slide right across that paint. It may leave a little tiny spot that you can buff out, but it's not going to do anything. But if you have a sticker underneath there, well, now you have this really hard plastic shell with really hard paint. And well, right here, you've got this kind of soft spot because you had that decal in there, and that can gouge into the decal as that stick or whatever you slide over. So now you've got a torn decal and then clear coat flaking off and stuff like that. You can always peel the decals off if something gets scuffed up, or something starts peeling later on down the road. If it's clear coated, then you're going to have to basically strip the whole body and start over again. That's my kind of thinking on it. And if it's a shelf queen, by all means, throw the decals on there and throw some lacquer over top of it to make it look as pretty as it can possibly be. But you still see where the decals are, so it doesn't perfectly hide them. I just shoot it, sticker it, run it. So Christopher Walker, do you think the re-rees from the manufacturers will start to slow down in 2026 and be phased out, or is there still more on the table for years to come? Hard question, because I do see potentially a slowdown, just because I see a dramatic slowdown in the interest in RC overall. This year, it seemed like it took a nosedive. The 3 or 4 years before that doing this, there was always a ton of interest. There was always a ton of hype. And kind of middle of last year, and then especially the beginning of this year, when the new stuff was announced, there was not a whole lot of buzz about it. There was not a whole bunch of hype about it. A few things got a little buzz, but overall, it's just been kind of blah. And then you have Associated, who is just cramming anything and everything with an orange and white paint job on it, and throwing it out the door at $400 a pop plus, which I think is actually hurting interest. People got really excited when the RC10 came out, and then there's another one and another one and another one and another one and another one, and people just got overburdened with them. And I know there's still a lot of interest for them, and there's a lot of people still buying them. Personally, they pissed me off with the four-wheel drive kit, and I haven't looked back. I just quit them. One, I just couldn't afford to drop $400 every month and a half for another car that, I've got 4 or 5 RC10s now. I don't need 30 of them. And they're not that different. Now, Now, I'm not going to get into the whole RC10 thing, but Kyosho could make a lot of money on re-rees, but for some reason they're just stuck on freaking Optimas, and let's make these $400-500 four-wheel drive limited edition kits, and it's like, dude, a Raider, a Rocky, hell, even the Icarus and the Pegasus and all those things. Make your entry level, beginner level plastic chassis kits. There are a ton of them out there. There's 73 different versions of different things that you can make on the plastic chassis, but they want to keep making the metal rail chassis and the four-wheel drives with the chain drives and belt drives and all this stuff. They're great, but again, those things are $350 to $450 a pop. Make a plastic chassis kit for $200. You'll probably sell 3 times as many of those because more people are going to be like, "Ooh, oh man, I remember those when I was a kid." $200, that's not too bad. I can afford that. Versus, you're dropping to Tom's and it's like, $480. I'm probably going to pass on that. And with the price of everything else raising, people's budgets for stuff like this is shrinking just as fast as the prices of everything else is going up. Next year, I think Tamiya should come out of the gates swinging. I think I've got a follow-up question in here I'll go into a little bit more detail on. But next year should be a banner year for Tamiya. Their 50th anniversary, they should have a ton of great re-releases. Hopefully some stuff people have really, really wanted. So we'll see. Hopefully it's just not a 959 body on a TTO2 or a BTO1 chassis. So hopefully they do it right. But I think overall, kit building is somewhat of a dying thing. We are becoming the dinosaurs of the hobby. And four-wheel drive bashers and mini race cars and all this stuff are the hot new rage. But, kits have been around since the 80s, 70s. And Tamiya just keeps cranking them out. And I don't think that they're going to shutter the doors anytime soon on their RC model kits. So for the next 10 years, I think we're probably good. But I think slowly but surely, as we start expiring, so will the market for builders kits, unfortunately. Shin RC, do you ever try any of the Proline airbrush paints? I have used some of the Proline paints in the past, and they're fine. They work all right. I've had more issues with trying to thin them and get them to spray properly than the fast color paints. And maybe it's just because I have a little bit more experience now than when I was using a lot of the Proline paints. But the problem with the Proline paints is it's like they make paint every 6 or 8 months. It's like I go into the hobby store one time and the display is just packed. It's got every color and there's 73 different bottles of every color. And then 3 or 4 months later, I go back in there and there's just the weird colors that nobody ever buys sitting in the racks. And then all of a sudden, another 3 months goes by and boom, they're back. The fast color paints that I've been using seem to be in stock in A-Main and everywhere a lot more often. And when I went to buy a bunch of airbrush paints at the beginning of the year, or end of last year, I don't remember, they had everything I wanted in stock, where Proline was missing about a third of the colors that I wanted. So I just jumped on board with fast color. The Parma line. So that's kind of why I got so much of the Parma fast color, is it was there. Alfred Yost, what's the most enjoyable easy building car? Or what was your most enjoyable easy building car? For me, it was the Vanquish VS410 Pro. All the metal parts are machined and just went together amazing. I would probably say the most... pretty much any of the Kyosho kits, they just all, it's like I said, the best example I can say is they just go together like Legos. Everything clicks into place. As with anything, sometimes you're looking at the drawing and you've got to get your brain wrapped around on the angle that it's drawn at versus the angle you're holding it to figure it out. That's kind of all the kits. But the Kyosho stuff, it just goes together so well. It feels so quality. Both while you're building it and when you're done with it. And, it's generally not, and it's generally not just a big chunk of plastic tub that you're bolting arms and shocks and stuff onto. You're actually got metal rails and stuff like that. And that's, again, probably why they've been so popular and why they focused on it. But, for example, Tamiya just came out with the Black Edition Grasshopper. It was 88 bucks. How is everybody else's prices going through the roof? And Tamiya is releasing a limited edition, black edition for 40 bucks less than a regular Grasshopper. It's weird. The June Watanabe Hornet was the same thing. The June Watanabe Hornet was, I think, 136 or something like that, which is cheaper by 30 bucks than the regular Hornet. And it's like, Howard, what? So it can be done. And I think Kyosho would make a fortune if they did it. But we're kind of getting back to that. But yes, I'd say the Optimas and all that stuff, those I really, really, really enjoyed. The Tomahawk is probably my favorite, both because it was kind of my first real good Kyosho kit, and it just, like I said, everything went together so nicely. So Chris Gotcher, my question for the Ask Me Anything video, what is your thoughts on the associated Rally 959? I've said it dozens of times. I think they're stupid to just throw the RC10 livery and white plastics on random crap and be like, buy our RC10. I mean, for the car itself, it's fine. The car itself, I have no problems with. The body itself, I don't have any problems with. Making it on a gold pan with white plastics and RC10 livery is just absolutely stupid as hell to me, and I refuse to entertain it. If they had come out with a kit where you could build a rally car and it had a cool retro rally car livery on it, sure. But it's like, oh, well, we know Tamiya's 50th is coming up and they're going to be making a 959 probably, so let's put out a 959 but make it an RC10 version. Dumb as hell. I'm really tired of Associated at all. So that's my thoughts on that. So Lord Schnurt asks, and he has one of the best YouTube names, by the way. So maybe not necessarily for this video, something to follow up, but I'll touch on it here. Can you do a special episode about the different creator funding options work, affiliate links, memberships, merch, buy me a coffee? How does it all work? What works out best for you? And why not simply just put your bank account or Venmo details in the description? It all sounds very complicated. Do what banks have been doing since the dawn of time. Well, real quick, 3 minutes or less, hopefully, explanation. The YouTube monetization goes through Google. Google owns YouTube. We get paid by Google AdSense through YouTube. So the way that works is you have to have at least 1,000 subscribers, and I believe it's 1,000 watched hours of video. So you have to have 1,000 subscribers or more, and all of your YouTube videos added together have had to have been watched more than 1,000 hours total time. Once you hit that mark, you're qualified to become a affiliate of YouTube and start getting AdSense money. So essentially what happens, every YouTube video that plays, YouTube, Google, gets 98% of that. I get, they make $4 off of an ad. I get like 4 cents. And they make their money off of the ads to host all of the infrastructure and everything. We upload this too. So they're paying for their stuff and they're giving us these little breadcrumbs over here to keep us adding videos. Affiliate links work. So like my best one is AMain. I love AMain. I don't mind promoting them at all. I have nothing to do with AMain themselves. I signed up through a company called AvantLink, and what they do is I put a link to a product or the website in my video description. So if I'm talking about this and be like, hey, if you're interested, you can click my link below and it'll take you directly to it. I get a little bit of kickback from it. It costs you nothing extra. And that's exactly true. The link goes to AMain. AMain recognizes that that's an affiliate link, that, it's tied to me. I sent you to them. And if you buy this truck, well, I get 5% of the sale or something like that. It's something around there, 3 to 5% usually. And so you don't have to pay anything more for it. Your coupon codes, your discount codes, your member coupons all work, and you get the truck for the normal price. I just get a little tiny bit of their profit for me sending you their way. So it's a, I wash your back, you wash mine kind of thing. Memberships for YouTube, I don't like. I like them and don't like them. So the way the memberships work is you sign up through YouTube for $5 a month or whatever the membership costs. It's usually $5, $10, or $15 a month for different tiers. Mine, I just set to the default of $5 a month. So you sign up and you get access to special stuff that nobody else gets. So what I've been doing is a video a week for the members, and you would sign up and you would get those secret special member only videos. The problem I have with YouTube is I'm going to do simple math, so just say $10. If you give me $10 a month for a membership, well, YouTube gives me like $7.50 of it. They take the other, $3 or whatever, $2.50, $3 of it, and they keep it for nothing. They're already getting paid for the video. That's the reason I don't like them. Now, Buy Me a Coffee, basically what I've been doing is referring people over there. You can sign up for monthly automatic donations to the channel. You become a member, and I email you the links to the Secret Squirrel videos that nobody else gets to watch. And the reason I'm doing it through Buy Me a Coffee is because if you give me $10 at Buy Me a Coffee, well, I get like $9.85 of that. They only take out whatever the credit card processing was and a very minuscule amount, because they're cycling through these things all the time from different platforms, Twitch and Twitch accounts and YouTube and all these other things. So they're processing all these payments and they're just taking a tiny little bit off of it, and they're making plenty of money. So the other thing is for Venmo and stuff like that, there is no I'm not going to schedule a payment every month to me through Venmo or PayPal or whatever. You would have to go in there monthly and do it. So that's why Buy Me a Coffee and the YouTube memberships, it's an automatic thing. You sign up and you click the box, be like, yeah, I sign off for you to take $5 a month out of my account, and here's my account information, and it gets drafted every month on the same day and all that stuff, and it goes to the pools where I'm already receiving money from. That's kind of the way I've been working it. It's a little clunkier doing it the way I'm working it, because with the YouTube memberships, if I just had everybody sign up with YouTube memberships, then all I have to do is just hit a click box in the video thing saying this is members only, and it would automatically notify you guys and you would get it. Me now, I'm having to track everybody and put it in a spreadsheet and send out emails with the links and all this stuff. So it's more work on me. I don't like funding big corporations, and if I can direct you to a place where, you want to send me $5 a month, I'm going to get that $5 a month. Instead of you sending me $5 a month over here and I get, 70% of it or 60% of it or whatever. That's kind of the reason using Buy Me a Coffee and the memberships and all that stuff for the preferred way of doing it. So maybe I'll kind of cover all that in another video. Hopefully I got it under 3 minutes. So Outback RC Australia, you showed 2 truckloads of firewood. It's interesting. For us, we use slow combustion fireplace around 6 months of the year. Would 2 loads last a full season? And how do you store it and keep it dry? Do you have any wild critters that like to make home in your timber? We have venomous snakes at one stage, but it moved on to another place. And what is your most favorite part about the great hobby? So the wood, I've got a big wood shed. I can get 2 dump truck loads of wood in that wood shed, and then I actually have a small one right outside of our basement because we have a wood stove in our basement. So I'll fill that one up, and then I can just take my little cart out there, throw a load in, have a few nights of wood in here, and keep doing that. And then when that one gets empty, I'll take it out of the big shed. So both of them are covered. They stay dry in there. And as far as 2 loads getting us through the winter, yeah, that'll get us through the winter. We generally, it has to get cold and stay cold for me to start a fire. For the most part, until late fall, the heat, the HVAC takes care of everything. And then, if we get a cold snap where it's really cold for a week, I'll get a fire going. And then if it starts to warm back up, I'll let it die out and, do that. But for the most part, it's usually when it gets cold and stays cold, I'll get the fire going, keep the house warm with that. And, that lasts for a couple months and we'll be back to HVAC again. And as far as critters living in there, not really. We stack it up on pallets. So we put pallets in and then stack all the wood on top of that. And, you know, a little mouse will make a nest in there or something, but I've really not had any issues with snakes. Usually, you know, when I'm messing with it, it's out in the wintertime, and the snakes have no interest in being there. They're buried down somewhere where the ground is keeping them warm. Favorite part about this great hobby. Building is my favorite part. Unfortunately, I just have not had the amount of time I wanted to spend on building lately. But taking something from parts trees and random chunks of electronics and, you know, some rattle cans of paint and turning it into something like this, you know, it's enjoyable, it's relaxing, it's kind of therapeutic most of the time. Sometimes it's enraging, but most of the time it's pretty therapeutic and I enjoy it. Sharing the stuff with you guys, I really enjoy. Again, that does get tedious at times, you know, when you're trying to get other stuff done. And, you know, I spend 3 hours on a Saturday morning answering questions or answering comments, and, you know, I'm eating into my day. You know, it's like, spend so much time doing this. But for the most part, it's the building and, you know, just the enjoyment of being able to collect a lot of these things I saw in magazines as a kid and couldn't afford, and now I can. So it's just really, and a little bit of nostalgia and just my little getaway from life, really. So, Ivanyo, how many U.S. states have you been to? Probably a dozen or so. North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, D.C., Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Iowa, Missouri, Michigan, West Virginia. Been through Rhode Island, never stayed there, but been through there. Driven through a bunch of other states to get to those states. I've never flown to any of them, but those are kind of the ones I've been to. So 12, 13 that I can think of off the top of my head. Well, obviously Virginia is one and two because I've lived here my whole life, but I've been all over Virginia. So Mini Z 1994. Have you ever looked anything at changing the body shell for the Armor Gorgon for when it cracks and breaks? As well as maybe turn down the start punch of that truck. It seems to be quite a handful at the moment. Yeah, the punch is a little much on that, but I do have the wheelie bar on there now, so that does help a lot. I think you go with plenty of different plastic shells that would fit something like Cloudbuster Stampede, Tamiya Blackfoot. The Stampede and the granite bodies kind of go on there pretty well. The wheelbase is longer than those, but it just kind of fits the truck. So hold on one second. So this is the body on the Gorgon. This is the early 50s Chevy body, I think, for the Granite and Stampede. So it fits pretty well. The wheel wells are a little inward to the actual wheels, but I did the best I could. We did turn the tailgate into a wheelie bar, so I do need to get that fixed. But I do have the wheelie bar on here now, so it will keep that from happening again. But for right now, I'm just going to get that one fixed up, and we'll go with that and make the best of it. You know, some fiber tape, some E6000 should be good to go. As far as hard bodies, like something like Cloudbuster, no, I wouldn't do that. Or the Blackfoot, it's just going to get beat to hell doing that. It's going to need to be Lexan and something tough. So something like a Proline body or something where it's a heavier gauge, thick Lexan, it would be where I would go. So anything else that would fit the Granite or Stampede, I think should be fine on it. Have you ever looked at anything like a trail truck for like a CC01 or maybe making the TL01 rally car you built a couple years ago into a Stadium Raider? I've got a bunch of the HBX TL01 clones and made a bootleg Stadium Raider despite the oil shocks and the MGX 14 2010 wheels and tires. Is still super bouncy. So I do have the CC02 the Bronco, and that's kind of a trail truck crawler. I definitely slowed mine down, so it's a little bit more of a crawler, but, quick transmission change. It could be a trail truck at any point, be more than fast enough to walk behind. And I've got other crawlers out there, so I'm not really looking for anything else like that right now. And the TL01s, just by design, they are bouncy things. Just that narrow chassis and those straight arms. The suspension geometry on there is just wonky, and I don't really think you could ever tame those. It's kind of like the Grasshopper. You can throw a lot of money at a Grasshopper, but it is always going to be a Grasshopper. It's always going to skitter around. It's always going to hop out and go in some weird direction no matter what you do to it. So the TL01s are kind of in that ballpark of just the way they're designed. They're just not the best overall suspension. Even... Where the hell's that truck? So even something like the Mud Blaster 2, it has that very similar, very narrow drivetrain, very straight arms, shorter, almost straight up and down shocks. And I have played with the shock fluid and discs, or the pistons and the fluid and those things over and over again. It's just bouncy. So I think TL01, good car, good rally car, truck, yeah, you're pushing it. Michael Dorich. I know I've asked about a live stream broadcast. I saw another format where a YouTuber interviewed another one, and they had a very good discussion and funny anecdotes. I was interested to hear their points of view. Does this sound interesting to you? Maybe your friend at Spare Time RC or the guy from Riviera RC. Although he's in UK, 3 people would be interested. Yes. I still want to do a live. It's just planning ahead, because I want to do it on a weekend to where I have time to sit down and actually interact with you guys if I'm, in the video. Evenings doesn't work very well for me. Usually I'm doing something else. And, by the time I can get East Coast, West Coast and everything, UK and all them guys are dead asleep. So I like to do it something like Saturday or a Sunday morning type thing. Get up, have some coffee, sit down and BS with you guys for a while. But also, I would like to sit down and kind of have a back and forth interview type thing with Al at some point. Thought about it. It's just generally when we get together, it's, we want to go out and play with trucks. It's just kind of the way it goes. But one of these days, yes, we will probably do something like that. I think it would be fun. And, maybe we could do like a Skype call or something like that and have more than one person on there and we could record it and then upload that later. I don't know, like I said, I'd have to do it myself before I'd want to, rope more people into it. So RC Throttle, if they ask me anything video, is there a particular RC you were trying to find or want for your collection and not able to find or afford? Which RC is that? Kind of the holy grail car would be the Tamiya Blazing Blazer. And I know that it's so far out of reach that it's just kind of a pipe dream type thing. Before that, it was the Super Blackfoot, because I sold mine when I was a kid and I was stupid. I wanted one again, so I had to find that kit and get it rebuilt and finished and everything. And the second one was the Traxxas Sledgehammer. Now, I actually have 2 of those. I have the black chassis and then I have the white chassis. White chassis is still in the box. It needs some more parts and pieces to get it done. But those 2, I had both those cars when I was younger. I sold the Super Blackfoot as I was getting out of high school, and then I had the Sledgehammer later on, and I sold that to a buddy I worked with because he was trying to get into the hobby, and I wasn't using it at the time, so I sold it to him. Really wanted them back, so I got those back. So pretty much the only thing left on my list would be the Blazing Blazer, and again, that one is like God level. I probably will never be able to get one, which is fine. Powers Model Garage, you mentioned in the comment on my Batman model that you've also painted a lot of minifigures. So yes, as I'm talking, I will put up a bunch of pictures of those. So when the pandemic hit and we were on quarantine and lockdowns and all that good stuff, I could order stuff and have it delivered. But, going out was not something I was interested in doing unless we had to. So, a buddy I worked with for a long time had been trying to get me to paint minifigures. I had zero interest in playing Dungeons and Dragons or any of the other games that they played, but he was convinced that I would have a good time with it. So I bought a resin printer. I found a company making files, and it was Loot Studios. I got a ton of files from them, printed off a lot of them, and painted a lot of them. And since I wasn't gaming, it was fun because I could print them out in like a big hero scale or gaming scale or even bigger if I wanted to. So some of them are playable size. Most of them have been upscaled to what I think they call hero size. So they're about a 3-inch, 2.5-inch, 3-inch tall figure. They're still small, but they're a lot easier to paint than them teeny tiny little things. And I did that for quite a while, but it was just one of those things where I kind of got bored sitting there painting all the time. You know, I'd print off 10 or 12 different figures, get them all cleaned up, and then for the next 2 weeks, every evening I'm just up there doing this for hours and hours, painting tiny little details on tiny little critters. So it kind of grew out of it, and I would say over the last 5 or 6 years, my eyes have gotten a lot worse. So staring at something that teeny tiny without big magnifiers on there is not fun anymore. So, you know, bigger stuff, yeah, I'll still sit down and paint something, but kind of gotten out of the whole mini figures. So I hope you guys enjoyed the pictures of some of the stuff I've done. And some of the stuff in there was printed. The big Buzz Lightyear one, I had seen that on Instagram somewhere. Somebody had made one, and they wanted an astronomical amount for it. And I was like, no, I'll make one. So I got me a Buzz Lightyear figure. I hacked him all up, painted him. And the other ones, they just kind of like painted his face and like made it look like gory blah. For mine, I actually 3D printed the tiny little skull and put that in there. So mine is different than the one I saw on Instagram. But it was a fun project. But yeah, so I will paint stuff occasionally, but for the most part, I've been so wrapped up in this for the last 5 years, really haven't gotten into any much else. Rockpile, my question for the upcoming video: what are your thoughts on future videos that simply involve modifications and/or improvings to existing models, maybe before and after running comparisons? It's not a bad idea at all. The only problem is my attention span and my semi-aversion to upgrades. Now, let me explain those. So my attention span, I think by now, if you've been watching the channel for a long time, I've got the attention span of a squirrel with a yard full of acorns. I just can't pick one and stick with it. So right now I've got 2 different bodies to paint and doing other things as well. So it's hard for me to focus on, say, take this car, run it, let's add some upgrades to it, run it again, see what that does, let's add some more upgrades to it, see what that does. Because basically I'm going to get it built, I'm going to get it painted, I'm going to run it, and then I'm going to be like, I don't know, it ran fine. I'm just going to build this one next. That's just kind of the way I am. Like I said, the building part for me is the fun. Now, as far as upgrades go, I will do upgrades, but it's got to be something needed or is going to make it so much better. So, like getting a stock kit that has friction shocks and putting oil dampers on there. I don't mind doing that. You know, 20, 30, 40 bucks for a good set of shocks, make it drive a whole lot better. Perfectly great. A motor, you know, ditch the silver can, put in a 20, 30, $40 motor, make it run a whole lot better. Great. Aluminum shock towers, aluminum arms, you know, slipper clutches, all that stuff. I really don't care. 99% of the time, the slipper clutch I have cranked down way too tight. It's basically locked. Because I just don't want anything to loosen up and start slipping as I'm driving. So I just kind of tend to crank them down a little bit tighter than I should. So I'm not a huge upgrade guy anyway. And, you know, while it can be interesting to see the evolution of a crappy kit into a great kit, again, the attention span is going to get me on that. I'm going to say I'm going to do something, and then it's going to sit over there in the to-do pile for 6 days to 6 months, and I may or may not ever get back to it. So I try not to commit myself into doing stuff like that, just because I know how the brain goes and doesn't stick with things but so long. Build, restore, customize. Can we have a world map update, please? And also, if money was no object, what RC would you add to the collection? So kind of, you know, alluded to the Blazing Blazer earlier. So if I could, I would. So as far as the world map goes, we've got a giant pile of nerds sitting in here in the United States, some in Canada, lower Canada. We've got this big pile of like nerds on a rope here that is the UK. And then we're spread out all over the place. So I'll hit some of the outliers. We've got a couple like Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Tinjau, Seoul, Korea, Greece. I've got one out here in the middle of nowhere. It's Madeira, It's a Portugal island. I believe that was for Fonzie RC. I believe that was where he was originally from. Now he's in the UK. I've got Ireland and Scotland, a bunch in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Germany, Austria, France, Hungary, Czech Republic, Italy, Finland, way up here. I don't remember if that had a name on it. No. But way up here in the top of Norway. That looks cold. All kind of southern borders of Australia. Nobody tends to live in the middle of Australia. It's kind of like it's not habitable or something. And then over here in New Zealand, we've got a few. Now, for the more localized, we are kind of all over the United States. Mostly Mississippi east, and then West Coast. Kind of here, not so much. But if you haven't chimed in and want to get a pin on the map from where you're from, drop it in the comments. I will add you guys to the maps. And then here we have England, Ireland, Scotland, all you guys. We do have one up here in the Shetland Islands. And then just smattered about, not much going on in Ireland. We got one. And not much in Scotland. We got one. Now, I am not guaranteeing that I got everybody on there. I was getting them from multiple videos, multiple ways, multiple times, and I tried my best to get everybody on the map. I may have missed one or two, but again, if you haven't chimed in and want to be on the map, let me know, and I will get you guys pinned on there, and we'll keep adding to it. Cash Murray, what do you think companies could do to top today's RC? I think until something big comes out, a new battery technology or a new power technology comes out where, you know, super powerful, safe batteries, and then we can really start, you know, if you can make a battery output tons of power and do it safely where there's minimal risk of fires and explosions, then the motors and ESCs could be designed to match that, and you would have insane power or just insane run times for things. Otherwise, there would have to be something dramatic in the drivetrain of these things. So, you know, back in the 80s, everything was plastic gears and, you know, planetary differentials and stuff like that. And then we went to metal geared diffs that you could put grease in. And then you went to metal geared diffs that we had different silicone oils and stuff in. And then that's kind of where it's plateaued. You know, we've got all different types of ball diffs and gear diffs and stuff like that. But they're, you know, ball diff really hasn't evolved since it was made. You know, different types of balls, different types of plates, stuff like that. Gear diffs have not changed a whole lot since the 80s, you know, other than the, you know, making them stronger and better. But until they can come up with something like direct drive motors or something like that, you know, basically motor into a diff and you're just getting all the power and everything can hold up to it. You know, it's really hard. You're packing an awful lot of speed, power, and punch into something that's not very big and is traversing terrain that is just inhumanly impossible. You know, if you were scaled down to fit in this buggy and you took that buggy out and banged around the track in your yard with you inside, you wouldn't make it out alive. So what we put these cars through now is a ton of torture. And then, like, you got Al's big fifth scale, you know, super bashers that are chucking them 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 feet in the air and triple backflips and just smashing down the ground and driving away like nothing happened. You know, I don't know where you could technically improve that unless you make it more efficient and somehow more durable. But, you know, I'm sure the technology is there to make these things a whole lot better. It's just cost to benefit. You know, we could make it a whole lot more powerful, or we could make it a whole lot more durable, but you're going from a $200 car to an $8,000 car. Not going to be worth it. So, And with the way the economy's going around the world, I don't see any major leaps coming anytime soon. Eric B, what is your long-term plan? I don't have one. Honestly, I don't. I have lived the last 40 years of my life winging it and just making crap up as I go along. There is some essence of planning and some general directions, but mostly it's just kind of roll with it and try to make things better from where they're at. So, not a whole lot of futuristic plannings. Just never have been a long term planner. Is there a limit to your RC collection? Not yet, but it is getting there. I think with built kits, unbuilt kits, and kits here to restore, easily 250, and that's a ridiculous number. There have been many times in the last 6 or 8 months where I've sat back in here and just kind of stared around and going, really, do I need to buy anything else? We are getting there. I don't know when the absolute limit is. The biggest thing is I don't have a desire to move things on. I get something, I build it, I've put my time and effort into it, and I like it. So I want to keep it. And I have moved some stuff on and sold some stuff and given some stuff away. But it's just generally not in my nature. Long story, I've been a collector my whole life. I've always been collecting something, sports cards, comic books, RC cars, Matchbox cars, something. It's always been collecting something. Tools, woodworking, stuff like that. It's always been something. So, and I generally don't get rid of much of anything. So I've got a lot of crap. Not a hoarder yet. But I run out of room. I'm going to start hoarding. I'll start stacking stuff. And yes, it does. He said, does it depend on how much space you have, money, goals in collecting certain brands or models? Space is an issue. It's been an issue for a while, and I keep finding nooks and crannies and better ways to store things and stuff like that. Money, yeah, that's an issue too. It's not a cheap hobby, and I realized that I've been spending a lot of money over this last 5 years, and I've dialed it back some. Goals in collecting, there are still dozens and dozens and dozens of Kyosho and Tamiya and all that I want. Some guys get into the very vintage, hard to find kits, like Ari and Keith. They love the Losies and the stuff like that are very hard to find, very expensive to restore, and Keith with the Losies and AYKs and all those things. None of that is inexpensive. For me, there is still plenty of $120 to $150 Tamiya kits that I would be thoroughly entertained building, painting, driving, putting on the shelf, adding to the collection. So for me, it's more of just, the enjoyment of it. It's not necessarily I'm focusing on, I've got to get all of these. I'm not going for the Tamiya first 100, or, I'm not trying to get every TTO2 ever made or anything like that. It's just whatever catches my eye, whatever interests me, whatever looks like it's going to be fun or a challenge to build, that's kind of the next one I'm going after, and whatever the price that I can afford at the time. So yeah, planning, zero. No, I'm just making all this crap up as we go along. So Brad Brown, he was talking about the hype. I'm assuming the hype on the videos. I don't understand that either, Brad. I've had people say, "Oh yeah, I hyped up your video," and I'm like, "What?" I'm a YouTuber. I don't even know what the hell it is. I'm assuming it's something. If you like the video, it's like a super like. I like this video, but hey, hype it and let more people like. I don't know. Like I said, I'm a YouTuber. I don't even know what the hell it is. So, what do you put your cars up on? Foam or something to prevent flat spots in the tires? I do have a few car stands and a couple foam squares. So yes, I do. What I get are foam yoga blocks. You can find them fairly inexpensively on Amazon or fitness stores online. I usually get mine on Amazon. I usually get them about 2 for 15, 16 bucks. And then what I'll do is I will cut them in half on my bandsaw, because normally they're like 3 by 6 by 9 shaped. And this one, I actually cut 2 of them on an angle. So for the buggies, I can leave them kind of canted forward so you can see more of the car. For this one, I actually cut it into a third because I wanted it to be flat, and these tires are still up off the ground, but it's not excessively off the ground. Bandsaw cuts them great. I'm sure you can do it with a very long razor blade or even like a hacksaw or something like that. Just not anything that's going to grip and dig into the foam when you go to cut it. But that's what I use for all of mine. I'll buy 6 or 8 of them at a time, and then I'll just cut them up as I need them. Some of them, like the bigger bashers, I have those on a full-size block. For like my TXT1 and the Cloudbuster, I basically cut them down into thirds long ways, so basically it fits in between the axles, so I'm just supporting the front and rear axle with them. But that's how I keep them off the tires off the ground, because I am terrible about remembering to, oh yeah, I got to go out there and rotate the car tires around. I wouldn't. I'd have 150 cars sitting here with flat spots on the bottom of them because I never rotate them. So this way it keeps them, and you know, there's arguments against it. Oh, it lets the arms hang down and it'll break your arms. You know, if it does, it does. You know, the flat spots are broken arms. Either way, it's not going to drive. So at least I'm trying. Let's see. Do I put full radio gear in everything, even the shelf queens? I do, except for a handful. I think I've got 6 or 8 maybe now that don't have radio gear in them. Some of them did have radio gear in it. I ran it once and said, okay, I'm probably never going to run that again, and pulled most of the radio gear back out of it. But everything behind me, except for the Shadow, has full running gear in there. Radio, receiver, ESC, motor, everything ready to go. And then I have multiple digital radios. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different Spectrum radios that are all full. And now I have the Radio Link. That was the RC8X or 8XC, something like that. RC8X, yeah. Really like this. A few people say, "Oh, that's a terrible radio. You'll have range problems, and you'll have this problem and this problem." I haven't yet to have a single issue out of this radio, and I've got another 170 cars I can put on this one. So, I'm really happy with that one. But yeah, I like to be able to come down here and say that one or that one is the one we're taking out today. So really, like the speedrun cars, I've retired those. Those are my trophies from the speed runs. So those have servos in them, and I think motors in them, like just silver cans. But no ESC. I've taken all that stuff out and used it on something else because those are done. Those are retired. Those are my trophies for the speed runs. The only speed run one I have left that actually runs is my lunchbox over there, just because that turned into my Fun Runner lunchbox. But pretty much everything else has full radio gear in there, ready to go. Whether it's modern radio gear, there's a few like my Falcon that is ready to go, but it has vintage electronics in it. So yeah, he mentions he puts decals on them to remind him. A lot of my stock ones, let's see. Yeah, so like this one is a stock Armor radio, 3S Big Rock. Just a label maker from Costco. And label them so I know which one goes to which, so I'm not sitting here like having to power on 35 different radios. And for my radios, if I am not used, like my digital radios, I will change the batteries out in them every 6 months just to make sure nothing gets damaged. I don't want anything leaking and damaging them. These, I've got a cabinet in there that has a ton of radios in it. I take all the batteries out, put them in there, and then when I need one, I'll just slap some batteries in there and run it. And then when I come back in, clean the car up, take the batteries out, put it back so I don't damage any of my stuff, because I have ruined a few different radios by forgetting double A's in there for a year or two, and you come back and it's just a corroded mess. Dan Jazz, with the anniversary of Tamiya pending, what do you wish they would, what do you wish to be released? And what do you think is more likely to be released? I hope it's not a different color Claude or Avante, or worse, a BTO1 with a 959 on there. I agree with you 100% on that last one. If they do the 959 on something like the BTO1 kit, I think there's going to be pitchforks and torches coming at them. They'll sell. They'll still sell. But I think a lot of, true Tamiya fans will be enraged if they did something that blasphemous for the 50th. There's a bunch I would love to see. What I think may come out next year, I do think they're probably going to do some 959. The bad thing is I don't think they'll be able to do like the Rothman's livery on it. So it's going to be another one where you're going to have to get the car and then go to somewhere like MCI and get the Rothman decals for it. So I don't know. Maybe they can figure out some way of doing it, but with the kind of overarching ban of cigarettes and alcohol on toys, it's kind of hard for them to do something like that. So I don't know. I do hope they bring out something like the King Cab or the Monster Racer now that they've done the Super Astute. That transmission can be transplanted in there and should be tough enough now to where it will hold up in there. So hopefully they may be able to do something like that, re-release those. I really hope they do a Falcon. I've got one, but I would buy another one to be able to build it and really run it. I've got a vintage one. Huge thanks to Bryce. He was able to find one out in California, super cheap at like a flea market or yard sale or something. And he knew I wanted one, so he sent it to me. And he actually 3D printed me some parts, so in case I did want to run it a lot, I could put the 3D printed parts on there and run it. I decided to keep it completely stock. It's got vintage electronics in there. Everything looks and feels all original. And it's a shell queen. So it would be cool to get one out of the kit, clip all the parts, build it all up, and take it out there and run the snot out of it. And I think that's with a lot of them that are like these holy grail, the one that I really want, whatever it is. There's a lot of them out there, and some people like me have some of those. Like the Madcap I have. I've got the Falcon. I've got the Mad Fighter, the Super Fighter G. A lot of these buggies they're not making anymore, and they're really hard to come by now. But a Falcon or a Madcap, I would buy one just to build it. Because I've never built it. Sure, I've taken it apart, I've cleaned it all up, I've put it all back together. But like I said, there's something about snipping those parts off the trees, following the instruction manual from step 1 to step 30, and next thing you know, you got wow sitting in front of you. So. There's a huge list of wants and desires from everybody. Sure, I would love them to re-release the Blazing Blazer next year. I don't think they're going to do it. And if they did it, it would probably be a $1,500 truck that I still wouldn't get. So, to me, it's kind of stupid with their pricing on some things. That's a whole nother story, though. So we're down to the last few. So, hey, Dad RC. What is the most likely things we'll see from Tamiya to celebrate their 50th? Kind of covered that. Like I said, I'm pretty sure we're going to see a 959. Whether it's on a Rothman's livery, I don't know if they can swing that. But like I said, there's a bunch out there. Guessing what Tamiya is going to do is like blindly guessing what the Yugoslavian government's going to do about a crisis in the Middle East relating to something about Africa and oil wells in Indonesia. I know nothing about it. Nobody really does. And the only people that know anything about it sit in the rooms in Tamiya, and they don't tell anybody anything. So what we get is what we get. I've tried to figure them out many times and scratch my head and wonder, why are you guys doing this, or why are you guys doing this? And they just kind of, they march to the beat of their own drum, for sure. Danny'sville, my question this time to you is your main viewing YouTube channel. Do you use your main viewing YouTube channel for these videos, or do you have this channel for your content and a separate channel for your day-to-day viewing? 99% of the time, I'm logged into YouTube with the Addams Playground account. I do all my comments and all the interactions and uploads and everything there. And then I also watch and comment on people's videos from that account. While I'm watching videos 9 out of 10 times, comments or replies or something are coming in at the same time. So I'll watch a video, I'll see something pop up, and then when I get done with that video, I'll go over there and respond to a comment. And then I'll watch another video, and then it's like, oh, somebody replied, and I'll go in there and I'll reply that. So it just makes it a whole lot easier when I'm on the laptop to just sign in and do it that way. Same thing with my phone. And he said also, just a bit there, you said you're not a fan of Horizon. Why is that? A couple different reasons. The biggest reason I'm not a fan of Horizon Hobbies is the bastardization they did with Tower Hobbies. Tower Hobbies was the pinnacle RC place for decades for me. We didn't have hometown hobby shops around here when I was a kid. There was one little tiny place. It was the back end of a pet shop. It was Maru Pet Shop, and he had a little tiny counter and maybe like 2 shelves full of stuff for RC stuff that he sold in the back of his pet shop. And then, like I said, there was the little TV repair shop, and the guy did some consignment stuff, and occasionally he would have a car or two in there, but most of the time he just ordered stuff for folks, parts and pieces and kits and radios and stuff like that. So we really didn't have hobby shops around here. I lived out of the Tower Hobbies catalog. Every month or every quarter, we would get that catalog, and I would just go from page 1 to page 300 in there and just examine everything in there. Even the planes and stuff like that I had no interest in, I was still like, oh, that's really cool. What type of engine does that have? And, you know, that type of stuff. Tower Hobbies got into a lot of financial issues. Horizon Hobby bailed them out. So they took over Tower Hobbies instead of them going under in bankruptcy. Horizon Hobbies rescued them. And then they stripped every good thing out of Tower Hobbies and turned it into a secondary storefront for Horizon Hobbies. And that was bad. But 4 years ago, they merged systems. And by merged systems is basically they took a duck in this cannon and a chicken in this cannon, and they shot them at each other. And what splattered out of that has been a 3-year mess of their inventory being off, their ordering systems being off, their help desk not knowing what is going on, their interconnected, non-connected, over-connected, under-connected systems all suck. That's why I hate Horizon Hobbies. Otherwise, there's a lot of shadiness that they've done. They've bought companies, stripped them down, refused to kind of keep what was going, low-key, and then just, you know, made them into something that they're not. And they've done that to multiple other smaller companies as well. So they basically just taken all this stuff under their umbrella and piled it up and made a mess out of a whole lot of it. Now, I'm not saying they're all bad. They're still creating a whole lot of really cool RCs. You know, they own Arma and Losi and Axial and, you know, damn near everything at this point. But I personally don't like them as a company. Therefore, I don't support them. So if I go to buy this from, well, say if I go to buy an Arma, well, Horizon owns Arma. So if I buy an Arma from Horizon, they get 100% of that profit. But if I go to A-Main and buy that Arma for the exact same price, or less because I can use a coupon code for it over there, then Horizon Hobbies gets less profit from it. And I'm happy about that. And I refuse to order anything from Tower Hobbies. I will go to Tower Hobbies once in a blue moon just to see if they have something. But I have not bought anything from them for 2 years now at least. So they're dead to me. Much like kind of Associated is now. And finally, Mad BRC. So my question is, I have a YouTube channel now, as you know. It's in the early stages, and I feel like it's a fun stage, to be honest. It's great fun doing the videos and sharing with like-minded friends, chatting in the comments. Any extra part of my beautiful hobby now. And it is an extra part of my beautiful hobby now. I'm a baby channel, and I have no ambitions of anything but to have fun and share with others. So I'm sharing part of the joy of my hobby with others. That's my target. But I totally understand the pressure that can come from YouTube when things grow and become bigger, when subs and views grow and need more and more and better content and videos grow. To my point, friend, do you enjoy doing your YouTube channel more now as you are? And well done, mate. Your channel has done fantastic. Or when you first started YouTube at the start of the journey. Um, so I like it. I love it. I hate it. And it was the same in the beginning. So in the beginning, like I said, I never thought I would be doing something like this. Public speaking and putting myself out in front of others was the last thing I could possibly think I would want to do. And now here I am chucking out videos 2 times a week to, the entire globe. Now, obviously, not everybody loves it, and I'm fine with that. I'm not a professional YouTuber. I'm not a chipper. Hey guys, let's check out the new thing from Arma. I'm not that guy. I'm never going to be that guy. And to be honest with you, I loathe those guys. Loud, obnoxious, overly happy, joyous, fake people bother the hell out of me. So you get me all the time. This is 100% me. Well, this is 98% me. There's a very thick 2% filter, and Al can attest to this. Off camera, my language is generally a lot more colorful and, sailorish at times. I worked a long time in cabinet shops and construction and stuff like that, where you could form a complete sentence out of 7 curse words, and everybody there knew exactly what you were talking about. And I can filter it, and I do filter it, but generally when I'm around people and not worrying about somebody's kids listening in, or I know you enough that you're not terribly offended by anything, that I can kind of relax, and the more colorful language comes out. But other than that, you guys are getting me. This is me. I sit down here and BS with Al just as I would be sitting here BSing with you guys in the camera. Like I said, language a little bit more colorful, a little bit more laughs because there's somebody actually there laughing back at me. But it is what it is. But overall, I still love it. I still do it. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't enjoy it. Now there have been times where it has been a cattle prod type effort to get me down here to record something and edit it. Mostly just because of the process of recording something and editing. It's not necessarily like I don't want to work on an RC car. It's more like I don't feel like taking 83 pictures and then sitting here talking about it and listening to myself talk in a camera, or editing myself talking into a camera for 45 minutes straight. These videos are the roughest to edit, just because I have to listen to myself forever. I mean, what you guys get is a condensed version of what I've sat here and sputtered, because sometimes I get halfway through a question and I get into a coughing fit, or I sneeze and then I got to go back and through it, or, I stumble over too many words and I go back and start over again. So you guys see a 45 minute video. I've been down here for an hour and a half rehabbering away, and my voice is starting to give out. That said, I enjoy these so much because it's like we're sitting down talking, 12,000 miles away. So it's the best thing I have, and the safer way of doing it, I think, because I am afraid in a live that I may slip occasionally. I do pretty well. I'm not a complete cussaholic, but they do fall out when I'm not really paying attention. But so I love you guys. Chat with you guys in the comments. That does get overwhelming occasionally, just because, like I said, you've got a long day of stuff I've got to do on a weekend. And when I get up on Saturdays and Sundays at like 6, and there were days where it's 10 o'clock before I've gotten off the computer, because I've been replying to comments, and then I'll refresh the screen and 30 more show up, and it's like, I do enjoy it, but there are days where it does get a little overwhelming, and there are some days where it's like, okay, I've just got to walk away and come back at lunchtime or this afternoon. And the reason I do that is because if I don't stick with it and if I don't keep going, I know my attention span is going to wander, and next thing you know, this is all going to go to the wayside, and I'll be doing something else. So yeah, it is time consuming. It is a lot of work. It is a financial burden. But you know, I'm still heavily rewarded. You know, the financial part of it is the financial part of it. I buy a car, it's mine. That said, you guys have really been killer to me over the years. I've got a lot of great support. I've had the RC Elf who really pushed the channel, got me going, and I forever will have a debt of gratitude to him for all the help and stuff he put into it. But like everything, you know, there are good days, there are bad days, there were overwhelming times, and then there's times where, you know, I can't think of anything I'd rather be doing. So, yes, it is a mixed bag. You just take the good with the bad, keep moving on, and keep enjoying it. I was trying to wrap up before my battery died, but it killed me anyway. So basically, I don't know where I left off, but I think it was just basically, you know, I enjoy it. There are hard times, there are great times, but I'm still enjoying it. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't be doing it. And I owe most of it to you guys and everybody that's helped me out, the channel members, the guys that are supporting the channel, sending in things. I can't thank you guys enough. It humbles me all the time, the amazing support from you guys. Anyway, this battery's going to die too. You guys out there, be happy, be healthy, be safe, and I will catch you on the next one. Thanks so much for the great questions, and I hope you guys enjoyed all the answers. Take care, guys.